Alright, so the first new video for Project 2 is going to be, I wanted to spend a little bit of time doing a concept video again, right? Some of our videos from the first 2 weeks were some concept videos. So this is kind of one of those things I want to talk to you guys about a little bit. Just for, like, not that long. But I did want to kind of talk to you guys about the difference between a Nurbs surface and a Polygon surface, because we did a little spline modeling with the loft, right? Curves, and then generating mesh from curves. And we are going to be doing more of that on our lamp, because that's going to be our first new model for this week. I'll probably go into a little bit next week as well, because the room is pretty straightforward and easy. We only need like kind of a day and a half worth of lectures, so we'll probably still do a little bit of videos for the lamp next week, and then kind of have some videos for the room next week also, of course. So the difference between a Nurbs surface and a Polygon surface. In this case, I'm not even going to generate a spline for it. I'm just going to go to create Nurbs primitives, because you can actually drop in Nurbs primitives, right? So I'm just going to create like a Nurbs primitive cylinder. There we go. And initially it looks like a Polygon surface, right? It's more rounded, although quick keys 1, 2, and 3 kind of can control the levels around this, which we're going to start to see on our lamp. Not today as videos, but probably next videos. A little bit about how things like subdivisional surfaces work, and how you can use that for sometimes, and sometimes that can be an appropriate and great shortcut. We'll talk about that in later videos. So you do get a more rounded surface while still having simpler control cages, right? One of the biggest differences, though, is that if you hold down right mouse button, you will see that you have different selection types, right? There's this thing called control vertex, right? Just like on a Nurbs curve, we drew our curves, our splines, we had control vertices on them, right? CVs. Now, one of the things you'll notice that's different between polygons and Nurbs, whether the polygons are straight low res or if they're in smooth preview or subdivisional surfaces, is that in both cases, these are all projected. All your vertices, all your edges or faces are projected directly on the surface itself. So one of the drawbacks already to Nurbs is that you have these vertices off the surface, right? Which, if I was to select these and just hit W for move and then move these in, you'll see eventually you lose track of them, right? And they're inside the surface. And then you have to kind of, hit 4 for wireframe to go find them, hope that you're selecting the right ones. So not actually having things like your control vertices directly on the surface is actually not that cool. It's actually pretty annoying. You'll also notice there's a bunch of vertices here, but there's no edge loops. Well, a Nurbs surface is really a whole surface that's not made specifically of polygons in the normal way we think of them, right? So there are actually no edge loops, right? In fact, edge loops don't really exist on a Nurbs surface. It's got kind of its own thing that's kind of like it, isoparms, but it's kind of not really like it. It's kind of like it, not really. So you do have these extra control vertices because by default this is a 3-degree or cubic Nurbs surface, right? And that's one of the things we'll talk about a little more on the curves stuff today with our revolve for later videos. So you actually have more vertices on the surface than there are edge loops, right? In this case, since it's 3-degree cubic, you always have kind of your start, your end, and then at least 2 other vertices to control shape, right? So that's kind of one of the differences right there, is that you have more vertices than there are edge loops, or Nurbs equivalent, which is isoparms, and none of the control vertices, which you use for shape, are on the surface. Now you notice rotate and scale and all that stuff work for these, right? So you kind of have all your different shaping options for those. Now, what if I did want to add edge loops? Well, I can hold down right mouse button over the object again, and you'll see that there's control vertex, there's isoparm, right? So if I click on an already existing kind of edge loop or isoparm, right? You hold down shift and I can kind of add another one, but you have to kind of click on an already existing one. You just can't click anywhere you want to add them in. So you have to kind of click drag, shift click if you want to add more than one, right? And then to put them in, you have to actually go to surfaces, insert isoparms, right? Insert isoparms, and that actually makes them real. You notice it doesn't change the surface radically. Multicut actually has a feature called edge flow, which we'll actually see in our videos for lamp also, that actually allows you to help not change the surface direction. Also smooth preview, so that's kind of a neat advantage that Nurbs have, but not really, because nowadays most software actually has the ability to do that. With the regular polygons and their inserting edge loop features like multicut. But now we do have more isoparms, and you'll see if we hold down right mouse button, we go to control vertex, we see there are now more control vertices that will allow us to do shape better. But once again, as this gets more complicated and we have to kind of move stuff around, right, we see that all of a sudden these control vertices end up in the surface. And it becomes harder and harder as we kind of move stuff to know, well, where is that vertex? Is it that one? I think it is, right? So not having those control vertices on the surface is actually pretty horrible, right? You can't. It's not always going to be easy, and the denser a NURB surface gets, the more confusing it's going to get to figure out which control vertex it is that you want to move. It's that one that's way inside the surface. So not having a one-to-one direct correspondence of your vertices to actual polygon vertices or edges in NURBS is really pretty horrible. In fact, these look like they're polygons, but they're not, right? I haven't even shown you yet that you can put in partial edge loops or edge loops that wrap around in weird ways. If in polygons, we could actually put an edge loop that goes down this way and then wraps around that way. Or we could just have it stop partway through and create an n-gon. We have that flexibility with polygons. You notice with isoparms, it's all or nothing. It goes all the way through. Now, if we hold down right mouse button, we can go to Hull, right? It's one of the selection types, Hull. And that does give us the ability to select edge loops. And of course, we can use our move, rotate, and scales with them, which is cool. But we know we can select edge loops for polygons also. Now in this case, though, it looks like we have edges here. Those aren't. See how it selects the whole thing? So if I go back to, say, control vertex, because that's the only thing you can, the Hull and control vertex are the only things you can select, and they really just select the controllers and the only thing you manipulate. This is not an edge. There's no such thing as edges. Remember, these look like polygons, but they're not really polygons, right? They're really just a visual indication that there are going to be control vertices there. So this is really just one giant surface that has control vertices you can edit with. So I can't select single edges. You can only select whole edge loops or the control vertices for that. So if I really wanted to kind of move these two, I'd have to select this, I'd have to select this, and then I'd have to go 4 to find that other guy right there to do something that's so easy with polygons, where you just grab 2 edges. So you can already see that there's no real edges. You can kind of select an edge loop through whole selection. That's about it. We can go to surface patch, and you see how we can actually select polygons, right? But remember, these aren't really polygons, right? I always tell my students in lectures, the cake is a lie, right? So there's no things there, right? And you notice move tool's on. So you can't move, rotate, or scale edges or faces in a NURB surface. The only thing you can do is control vertices. That's the only thing you manipulate. And isoparms give you the ability to select rows of CVs. And isoparm allows you to add a whole row of CVs. So you might be thinking, well, what if I want to extrude this off? You can't. You would have to make a different NURB surface, and then you would have to kind of have them overlap, do trimming to trim these surfaces out, and then do a whole fillet blend, right? Which is the equivalent of deleting polygons or doing booleans or bridging, which are honestly faster and easier in polygons. And we're going to see bridging and booleans eventually. In fact, we'll start to see it on this current project. NURBs, in my opinion, kind of suck. Nobody really uses them in our industry anymore. It's really more of like an industrial design thing. Like if you're working at Ford or something like that, or a car company that's actually making real cars, or you're working at NASA, they're not even going to be using mine. They're going to be using things like, Autodesk Studio Tools, Rhino. They're going to be using very different software that's used for very different purposes. For us, NURBs are slow and hard, and they don't give you any better benefits anymore. Our industry, which is making video games and movies and visual effects for TV shows and commercials, it's pretty much all polygons nowadays. So a little bit of the difference between NURBs and polygons, and you can kind of see all the drawbacks that NURB surfaces have, or at least many of them compared to polygons. One of the cool thing though is that you saw earlier, you can actually do spline modeling and then just output directly as polygons, right? When we do lofts and revolves, we can just output it directly as polygons. We can even select this NURB surface and go to modify, convert NURBs to polygons. And if we go to the options box for that, you'll notice that our actual convert features for output polygons, it's the same thing. That's all the output polygons for the spline modeling tools are doing, is just going right to the conversion. So I can easily just kind of convert those. There's my polygon mesh, and I can go to faces, and I can move faces, and if I want, I can extrude faces out, right? So I can actually extrude a face out if I wanted to. And I'm going to start to show you guys smooth preview a little bit more, probably not today, but just to briefly show you, 3 on your keyboard turns on a smooth version of this, right? It's what we call subdivisional surfaces, but it's actually Maya's smooth preview. 1 turns it off. And you'll notice that you can interact directly on the surfaces, even in smooth preview mode. So Polygons just so much faster and easier than Nurbs. Why am I showing this to you? Well, it's great to kind of know that we used to use Nurbs a little more than what we did a long time ago, and that they're still available in Maya. They haven't added a new feature, the Nurbs tools in Maya, in a long time. I mean, a long time. They're there as kind of legacy tools more than anything, right? You can spline model, right? You can draw curves and generate surface based on curves, but you'll notice that you can output directly as polygons, right? You don't actually have to find work in Nurbs at all, even if you want to use splines. So if somebody tries to tell you spline modeling is Nurbs modeling, not really true. Spline modeling is just the ability to draw a Nurbs curve and then generate, using one of these guys, a mesh, and it could be directly polygons. And you can even convert that Nurbs surface to polygon mesh later on if you want to do further modeling on it. Can you make ultimately really detailed, great stuff with Nurbs? Yes. Is it a lot harder and a lot more time consuming? Yes. I'm not going to make you use Nurbs at all, guys. That's the extent of Nurbs for our class. We will do a few more spline modeling things here and there, but we're going to output directly as polygons. So that'll be a great place to stop for that concept video.